we begin a political revolution.
So CNN did a ridiculous, dumb smear segment on Bernie Sanders once again, trying to paint him almost as untrustworthy. So let's go straight to the segment. It's about Bernie Sanders not yet releasing his tax returns. He said on a CNN town hall with Wolf Blitzer that he would release his tax returns, 10 years worth of them. And he said soon. What does soon mean? Soon could mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But apparently to CNN, soon was a while ago, because now they're acting like it's a gigantic deal that Bernie Sanders has not yet released his tax returns. So let's go to this cringeworthy segment, and then I will break it down for you.
Senator Bernie Sanders has railed against President Trump for not releasing his tax returns and pledged to release 10 years of his own right here on CNN.
Will you release 10 years of your tax returns? As you know, Elizabeth Warren has decided to do that.
Yes.
What was the delay? Why haven't you done that so far?
Well, you know, the delay is not, it'll bore, our tax returns will bore you to death. It's simply nothing special about them. It just was a mechanical issue. We don't have accountants at home. My wife does most of it, and we will get that stuff out.
So when do you think we'll be able to see your tax returns?
Sooner than later.
What does that mean?
Soon.
Got changed. That was over a month ago. So CNN's Ryan Nobles is with me. What's the holdup?
The simple answer is, Brooke, we don't know. Their answer continues to be soon. We ask almost every day when we're going to see Senator Bernie Sanders' tax returns, and his campaign really can't give us a clear idea as to the timeline of when we should expect them. In fact, Senator Sanders was asked about it this weekend on CBS, and he said it was just a matter of dotting the I's and crossing the T's before they get them out. But what's so interesting about this, Brooke, is there seems to be a disconnect here. Senator Sanders told Wolf at that town hall shortly after he announced his candidacy that there isn't anything all that exciting about his tax returns, that there's not really a whole lot to comb through. So what is taking them so long to release them to the public so that they can see them, especially when he's been so critical of President Trump in particular for not releasing his tax returns? And we should also point out that there are a number of 2020 candidates that have already stepped up and taken on this challenge. Elizabeth Warren, Kirsten Gillibrand, Amy Klobuchar just released her tax returns, and so is Jay Inslee. So this is becoming the trend for 2020 candidates, and it's something that at this point Bernie Sanders has just not done yet, although his campaign continues to insist we will see them soon.
Okay. Ryan Nobles, thank you for the setup. I want to stay on this disconnect because, as you well know, Senator Sanders' delay in releasing his taxes, one of the curious comparisons to be drawn between the Vermont senator and President Donald Trump. Dana Milbank is a political columnist for the Washington Post and wrote this piece. Dana, so nice to have you on. And let me point out the obvious, that everyone has been obsessed with President Trump releasing his tax returns, including Senator Sanders. But as Ryan just reported, he still hasn't done it. How longer can he get away with it? And why do you think so far he's been untouchable on this issue?
You know, it is strange, and I think that this is why I drew some parallels between President Trump and Senator Sanders. It's not on substance, obviously they're completely opposite in terms of that, but they do seem to play by different rules and get away with things like that. So I'm not going to sit here and say Bernie Sanders definitely is going to turn over his tax returns. He may not, just as President Trump did. Similarly with the accusations recently of the mistreatment of women by his campaign in 2016, he sort of just rode that out in a Trumpian way. And I think the idea is he's a different kind of candidate. He's an insurgent. He's a bit demagogic. He's against the establishment. So I think he gets a pass for things that other candidates might not.
But why?
Well, that's the mystery, right? We've been asking this about President Trump all along. So why aren't we asking, well, is Bernie Sanders, he'd be 79 when he's sworn in as president. Is he too old? The questions about women, the question about the taxes. I think it comes from being an insurgent against the establishment, since he has never played by those rules. So he's held to a different standard of rules. And I think that is similar to the way President Trump has been treated. He gets a pass where more conventional politicians don't get a pass, and now Sanders benefits from that as well.
Dana, I have to read this graph from your piece. This is what you write. Sanders isn't Trump in the race-baiting, Linder-cheating, fact-avoiding, porn actors paying, Putin-loving sense. But their styles are similar, shouting and unsmiling, anti-establishment and anti-media, absolutely convinced of their own correctness, attacking boogeymen, the 1%, CEOs in Sanders' case instead of immigrants and minorities, offering impractical promises with vague details, lacking nuance, and nostalgic for the past. So do you think, Dana Milbank, that this makes Bernie Sanders quite a match for Trump come 2020?
Well, we don't know because Trump has thrown out all the rules. What we do know is Sanders brings out the rage, brings out the anger in people, different people, admittedly, the same way that Trump is. So it is possible that by having the same kind of uncompromising, unbending, angry politics on the left, that will bring out the left in droves the way it brings out the right for Trump in droves. Of course, it leaves out a whole lot of people in the middle who don't feel that way. But President Trump has brought out a lot of people talking about, saying immigrants, foreigners, minorities are to blame. It's certainly much nicer to hear what Senator Sanders is saying. It's the 1%, it's the CEOs, but it's the same idea. Those people are responsible for your problems. This is really powerful stuff. So I don't at all rule out that he could become the nominee and that he could beat Trump. It just means that our politics on both sides is now taking a more bitter turn where everybody's going to be angry and everybody's going to be uncompromising.
CNN. Oh my God. I think that host name is Brooke Baldwin. Good God. I can't fucking tolerate CNN anymore. That guy that they had on that segment at the very end, first off, the first guy was obnoxious and annoying and ridiculous as is, but the second guy, oh my God, that guy was fucking brutal. Have to even watch all that dribble come out of his mouth. I would have rather listened to a 10-year-old kid give me their take on Bernie Sanders than that fucking loser. And I know I just sounded like Donald Trump calling him a loser, but that guy is so fucking out of touch. Like, what is that guy talking about? Like that. First off, that segment went so far off the rails where, first off, they were already picking on Bernie Sanders about something stupid that wasn't even something that's even concerning the voters a little bit at the moment. Like, yeah, we want to see his tax returns just to be sure, but it's not something that we're just dying on the ledge to see what is going on in Bernie Sanders' tax returns. I mean, the establishment probably is, just because they're dying to be like, there it is. There's some kind of little like corrupt thing that Bernie Sanders did. You see how corrupt that is? Don't look at everybody else that's doing a ton of corrupt things. Look at that one little thing that Bernie Sanders did back in 2004 on his tax returns. What about that, guys? Do you still want to vote for him? Do you think Bernie Sanders is the best guy for the United States of America now? So that's what they're trying. That's why the establishment is concerned about it. That's the same reason that they were concerned about Trump's tax return, because they want to have these gotcha moments where they find something and they just slam them through the media and do all this nonstop scandal coverage of Bernie Sanders had something that was off in his tax returns. Now, I'm not even saying that there is anything off in his tax returns. I'm just saying that's what they want. That's why they're making a big deal out of it. And they're trying to make it, and they're trying to imply by the fact that he hasn't given up his tax returns yet, that basically he's hiding something, or they're making it sound like he's super suspicious and that he's kind of sidewinding around trying to not even give up these tax returns, and that maybe he'll never give them up. Maybe he'll do the Donald Trump thing and he'll be 3 years into a presidency and still not have given up his tax returns. Obviously, all of that is ridiculous. All of that is so out of touch for them to even try and frame that as a possibility. I mean, Bernie Sanders has been like the people's candidate for a while now. And obviously, he's going to release his tax returns. He's not just going to keep saying that he's going to do it and then just not do it. So it's already going nowhere. Like what they want to happen with this entire segment, it's going nowhere. First off, they got crushed on the ratio. Obviously, everybody just kind of went to that page and is like, what the fuck is this? And they thumbed it down. So good for everybody that did thumb down that video. I did as well when I right before I downloaded it, because it's fucking bullshit. But on top of that, now then they go into this other thing where now Bernie Sanders they go into the outsider thing again and how he's against the establishment and he's going against the quote unquote boogeymen, the 1% and CEOs, which I hate how they frame it. I hate it. I hate it. They frame it as, once again, the boogeymen being the 1%. And then they compare that to Trump's boogeymen being immigrants and Muslim. I think they said Muslims. I mean, Muslims are one of Trump's boogeymen. If they didn't put that in that little excerpt, forgive me, but still, either way, it's still factually correct. So then they go into this whole thing about how those are Bernie Sanders boogeymen and how he ignites anger out of people. And just so I can set the record straight on that, he doesn't like draw this anger out of people for no reason. The reason he actually draws the anger out of some people and draws this avid political dedication out of some people is the fact that he's actually touching on things that are true, that the establishment tries to just mask over and put this happy face on all of the time. And he actually just rips that happy face off and shows you, no, this is what's going on. These are the people that are trying to rig the system against you. These are the people that have been rigging the system for themselves. Now, the difference between them saying, yes, he is saying that a lot of the problems stem from the 1% compared to Trump saying a lot of the problems stem from immigration. There's a big difference there because they use the term boogeyman. So when you use the term boogeyman, now you're saying it's almost like this fantastical thing where it's almost like unrealistic. Like it's kind of like this, like he's making it bigger than he is, and it's kind of like almost like a fairy tale that Bernie Sanders is concocting up now. Like Trump saying, "Oh, the immigrants are doing everything that's wrong to you," and then they're like, "Oh, well, Bernie Sanders is all the way on the other side of things. He's just saying that the 1% is responsible for everything that's wrong with you," and they kind of make it seem like it's almost like a cockamamie statement by saying, by using the term boogeyman. Like that Bernie Sanders is kind of blanket statement, just lopping everything into, or lumping everything into what the 1% are doing. But the difference between those two things is you can't use boogeymen for what Bernie Sanders is trying to do. Because what Bernie Sanders is saying is correct. He's not saying, you know what, the 1% are monsters and creatures and they're rapists and they're murderers and maybe some of them are good people. Bernie Sanders is saying what's actually happening, that they're rigging the rules so that way they can accumulate more wealth while they're leaving everybody else that's in the working class behind and leaving them with stagnant wages, not enough money to be able to afford health care, crumbling infrastructure. Some places don't even have enough money for infrastructure replacement to get clean water. So that is the difference. Bernie Sanders is saying stuff that is actually true. Donald Trump is just saying that the immigrants are just coming over and ruining everything. So that's a big, big difference. So like Donald Trump saying that the immigrants are stealing jobs, they're making everything unsafe, they're voting, they're swinging elections, basically, which Donald Trump has said a billion times. How many people did he say illegally voted for Hillary Clinton? 3 million? Maybe more than that. I think it was 3 million, though. But, yeah, so that's the difference. There's one set of people that are actually in power that have the availability of rigging rules in their favor. Then there's another group of people in the immigrants that have no power and do not have the capability of rigging the rules in their favor. So that is the difference between what Bernie Sanders is saying and what Donald Trump is saying. Donald Trump is picking on people that have no power and are just trying to survive and provide decent lives for their family. Bernie Sanders is picking on people, and yes, some people that are illegal immigrants are like cartel members and stuff like that that are dangerous. So yeah, there are some dangerous people that cross the border. I'm not going to be naive and act like, oh, everybody that comes across the border is just a complete angel. But at the same time, most of those people are just trying to create better lives for their family or for themselves. On the other hand, the people that are in the ruling class, the people that are in the 1%, these people are actually in power and they have the ability to rig the rules in their favor. So there's a gigantic difference there. That second guy that they had on there, what is it, Dana Milbank? Dana Milbank can go fuck himself, because that is the most out of touch nonsense that I've ever heard. I mean, the one part that he did get right was the fact that, yeah, Bernie Sanders is going to really drum up the base, and they are going to come out and vote for him in the same way that the base of the Republican Party came out and voted for Donald Trump, because he speaks to what the base wants, and he does what the base wants. That does not mean that he's picking on boogeymen and just painting them out to be the only problem in the country. That means he's actually realistically looking at what are the issues of the country, what are the systemic issues, what can be changed, what needs to be changed, and he's pointing out the legitimate things that he feels need to be changed. Donald Trump is just, demagoguing immigrants just as a fear tactic to drum up fear, to drum up economic anxiety. So it is completely different what those two things are. And to just say, oh, you know what, both of them have boogeymen, just that one is the 1% for Bernie Sanders, the other one is immigrants for Donald Trump. So it's a ridiculous comparison to make, because one is actually accurate and isn't a boogeyman, and then the other one is completely inaccurate and is a boogeyman. So let's get that straight right off the bat, Dana. And outside of that, I just think the whole thing about the Bernie Sanders tax returns, I'm a Bernie Sanders supporter. Should he release his tax returns soon? Yeah. Does he have to do it right now, or does he have to do it within the next month? No, he does not have to do it within the next month or right now. He could do it 10 months from now, and I would still be happy about it. It's fine. It's way deeper than the tax returns. But then CNN has to go out there because they're like, how could we get Bernie Sanders? It's not even that he said he wouldn't release his tax returns. They're like, well, we can kind of just get him and say that he hasn't released them yet, so maybe that's kind of suspicious, and we can kind of lead people on to thinking that maybe he's up to something, and maybe he's actually not going to release his tax returns because he's such an outsider and a rebel that he doesn't want to play by establishment rules. Just shut up. Just shut the fuck up, CNN. Good God. Brooke Baldwin, she is unbearable. Every segment I see of Brooke Baldwin is the most out of touch. It's just all about establishment, out of touch groupthink on Brooke Baldwin's show. Everything is about civility and decorum and platitudes and being polite. It's just unbearable to watch. Not really ever touching on policy substance, making completely ridiculous comparisons between candidates, making it sound like Bernie Sanders. The only thing that Bernie Sanders has in common with Donald Trump is vaguely the fact that they are both outsiders to the establishment, and that people like that. That is it. Outside of that, everything that they stand for is different. And the reason that Donald Trump is not releasing his tax returns, I can guarantee you, is not the same reason that Bernie Sanders has not yet released his tax returns. So fuck off with that. Stop it with these smear segments. You seem so out of touch. You seem so stupid when you bring that up and act like, oh, well, you know what? That is kind of a scandal that Bernie Sanders said soon, and it's, I guess, soon, and he hasn't released them yet. So isn't Bernie Sanders just a suspicious crook that maybe we should really look at with a wary eye now? Oh, just stop. Just stop. Just stop. Just stop. Dude. Hey, everybody. If you already subscribed to the channel, just know that I genuinely appreciate it. If you don't already subscribe to the channel, then I'd highly recommend going down below and hitting the subscribe button, and also hitting the bell so that way you're notified every time I put out a new video. The show is about to go full-time starting next week. That means Monday through Friday, all new shows. So get in now, subscribe, and if you do want to make a donation to this show, since we are fully audience-supported, then go down and find the Venmo link below in the description box, and you can make a donation there as well. Thanks again, guys. I really do appreciate your support. Let's make this happen.